How's it going, guys? I'm Mike Dwyer from the Bunker Recordings and BetterMixes.com, and today I wanted to give you 5 tips to speed up your mixing workflow. Tip number 1 is use presets. I know what you're thinking, presets never work, that's terrible advice, but hear me out for a second. I'm not necessarily talking about the factory presets that come with the plugin, although there's not necessarily anything wrong with using those. Some companies make pretty good ones, some not so much at all. But I'm talking about for certain plugins, making your own presets. Let me give you an example. So here I've got the 6034 Ultimate Multiband Compressor from McDSP. I absolutely love this plugin. It's basically just a multiband compressor, but you can have an 1176 or an LA2A or a DBX over easy. So that's pretty cool. But this can take a little while to set up. So you've got 10 different compressors to choose from here for each of the 4 bands. So figuring out which ones sound best in the different frequency ranges and then tweaking the parameters of each one, it can take a while. So anytime I come up with a new use for this and spend a while tweaking all the parameters and getting it just how I like it, I save it as a preset. So the next time I'm having that same problem, I can just bring up that preset, tweak it a little bit if it needs it, and move on. So you can see here I have acoustic smoother for kind of evening out and leveling out acoustics that are all over the place. I've got bass squeeze, which I use all the time on my bass tracks. I've got cymbal deharsher for, well, as the name implies, if you've got harsh cymbals in your overheads. So the next time I've got an acoustic guitar that's just all over the place, I can just grab this, tweak a little bit, and get moving on with my mix a lot faster than if I had to recreate this from scratch. Another plugin just off the top of my head that this would be really useful for is the Slate VMR. I know a lot of you guys are probably Slate Everything Bundle users. Since that's an entire plugin chain with, 4, 5, 6 plugins in it, saving presets for certain things can really come in handy there. I'll give you another example of this. Let's take a look at Valhalla Room. So I've got these presets I made here, some fake drum rooms and one for overheads if I want a little more ambience on them. And I mean, this plugin has a lot of settings. There's a lot of knobs, bunch of sliders. So setting up this preset probably took me a while. So instead of having to start from scratch every single time I need this kind of sound, just save it as a preset and you're good to go. Tip number 2 is set plugin defaults. So this is kind of going off the last one, but let me show you what I'm talking about. So the Waves CLA 76 plugin, this is how it opens. This is the factory default, but I basically never use it on these settings. Probably 90% of the time I have the release on 7 and I always have the analog off because I just don't want that extra noise in my track. So now this is really close to settings I would actually use when I bring up this plugin. Obviously, I still need to adjust the input and output to get the compression I want, and I might still have to tweak the attack and release settings, but this is at least a lot closer. So from here, we can save this as a preset by going to Save Setting As. I've already done that. I just named it Default, but you can name it whatever. And then you click this little arrow here again and click Set as User Default. And then click that arrow one more time. Go to Settings, Preferences, Set Plugin Default to User Setting. Now, whenever you open this plugin, it's going to open like this instead of the factory default. Now on this one, it was only a couple of changes I made, so it might not seem like that big of a deal. Sometimes I'd forget to turn off the noise here, and then later on I would be hearing that noise and I'd have to search down and see where it was coming from. So this way I never miss that. So let me give you one more example. Maybe you use Soundtoys Echo Boy a lot. Let's find that. And again, this is the factory default here. Let's say you always use the Echoplex setting and you always like it with the width and the left-right offset cranked up. And maybe you always have a little saturation dialed in. So now if we save that as our plugin default, every time we open it, it's already where we want it. We can tweak from there if we need to, but it's already close. And if you set this up with a lot of plugins, the time you save really adds up over the course of a mix. Okay, moving on to tip number 3, and that's organize your session. So there's a few things here. 1, color coding, really important. Doesn't matter what colors you choose, but pick a color scheme and stick with it. So I've got all my drums here are this kind of teal color. Percussion is light blue, bass is dark blue. Guitars are various shades of red. Keyboards are orange, vocals are purple, effects are yellow. And again, every mix I do has these same colors. So I know if I'm looking for my lead guitars, I just need to scroll down until I see dark red. Or if I want to tweak my percussion, I just need to find light blue. It makes navigating your session super, super easy. And going along with that is putting your tracks in the same order every single time. So again, for me, any demo I have goes all the way on the left. Then I have my drums. Then I have my percussion, bass, rhythm guitars, lead guitars, keyboards, vocals, effects, and my mix and master at the end. So just like with the colors, it makes it really easy to find anything. There's no more searching around for that synth track because I know exactly where it's going to be, right there. And the third thing in the Organize Your Session category is name your tracks and name them something that makes sense. There's nothing worse than seeing audio 1, audio 2, audio 3 all the way down here. It just makes it really confusing and you've got to constantly solo something to see what the heck it is. If you just label everything, it makes life a lot easier. Okay, tip number 4, use reference mixes. I already made a whole video about this, so I'm not going to go too far in depth here. You can check that video out. I'll link it up above. But to keep it short, I use this plugin called Reference, which just easily lets me flip back and forth between my mix and whatever reference mixes I choose. If you occasionally check your track against your reference track throughout the mixing process, it'll really keep you focused on where you're trying to go and help you finish the mix a lot faster. And finally, tip number 5, get rid of distractions. Turn the Wi-Fi off on your computer, either put your phone on Do Not Disturb or even better, leave it in another room entirely. This will get rid of the temptation to check Facebook or check Instagram or check your email while you're supposed to be working. I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me where I've been bouncing a track or something that I knew was going to take a minute or two. So I figure I'll grab my phone and check Instagram while it's bouncing. Then all of a sudden I get caught up in it or an email comes in and I get distracted by that. And all of a sudden 5 or 6 minutes have passed and the bounce has been done for a while now. So I just wasted all that time. And you do that a handful of times throughout the day and you can really waste some major time with that. You're supposed to be mixing, so just mix. Get rid of all the distractions. You don't need it. It'll all be there after you're done. So those are my 5 tips for mixing more efficiently. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe.